If you say Bitcoin's going $100 million per coin, if you say that Bitcoin is going to demonetize every political currency on the earth, people will look at that and say, that's your opinion, right? We see this all the time. If you say that Bitcoin is infinitely more valuable than political currencies, people say that's subjective. They won't say it's subjective. And I understand when people say that. I would have said the same thing at one point. I mean, if we go back in time, people would not have the ability to describe the modern world. We did not discover Antarctica until 1820. So we have only known the actual true geography of the Earth for barely 200 years.
Imagine living through a shift in society so monumental, it reshapes the very fabric of global power. What if the currency you've used for your entire life is working on borrowed time? In today's video, we explore a profound question. Can the US dollar continue to stand as the world reserve currency, or is it inevitable that something will take its place? Luke Broyles dives into the patterns of history, highlighting how past dominant currencies like the Roman denarius and the British pound have all been dethroned due to debasement. As the world faces huge technological leaps and rapid changes, could Bitcoin be the answer to what would otherwise become a highly divisive and unequal world? What makes this digital currency fundamentally different? And why do so many believe they hold their own keys to economic freedom? Join us as we journey into an exploration of energy, value, and the technology behind the world's best money. You'll discover why some see Bitcoin not just as an investment, but as the most probable path to preserving their financial energy. This begs the question, what qualities must money have to be worth exchanging your life's effort for? And why is explaining Bitcoin to people akin to explaining electricity before there were light bulbs? Find out why Bitcoin might just be the most optimistic and transformative solution for your future. But before we do that, I want to introduce our sponsors, Stampseed, the Orange Pill app, and Swan. Our partners are businesses and people that we respect and our products that we at Bit Intelligence personally use. You're watching 21 Voices.
I think there's one scenario at which fiat continues to survive until it doesn't and collapses into something worse, or fiat continues to survive until it collapses upwards into something better, or like I said, there's some unknown that we can't possibly know, so I'll just skip that. But to me, it seems either way, fiat is not going to survive forever. I'm young. I'm hopefully going to live a long life, and in that life, probably I'm going to see a really big change to the way money is sorted, the way money happens, right? It was objective reality to me, objective truth in my understanding of history, that reserve currencies change, and that reserve currencies are changing faster and faster. And then it was objective reality to me that the US dollar has been around for a significant period of time, in fact, arguably longer than what it should have been compared to previous reserve currencies like the Dutch, like the Portuguese, the Spanish, the British, the Chinese, the Indians, the Greeks, the Romans, all the way back to the Egyptians, right? So that was what I knew objectively. The dollar has been around for a significant period of time, and even if its irrelevance is not immediate now, it's probably going to be irrelevant at some point before I retire in my 60s or 70s or so. And so I simply thought through what's going to happen, what's going to replace it. Perhaps gold. Maybe, it's this new empire, the American empire fades away, China rises up, and their currency becomes the new reserve currency. What if I could have some sort of small marginal impact of moving the needle towards the direction I wanted to see in the world? So anyway, as I continued going down that thought process over the course of a couple hours, I realized I need to take this more seriously and figure out, is Bitcoin legit? What makes Bitcoin different than the other digital tokens? Why do these digital tokens have any economic value at all? Why are their market caps so high? And ultimately, what am I going to do about it? Anything else, sure, is possible, but I think and I hope Bitcoin is the highest probable outcome, the most probable outcome that I can see. Therefore, I can't help but do anything but help accelerate that, help encourage people to learn about it, help people also begin to adopt that, to get off zero, to buy Bitcoin, to take self-custody, to become sovereign in that sense, and adopt that, right? Because I think the probability is very high. So it's both helping people adjust to that probability today, but also that's the probability I want to see. I think the way to change someone's perception of reality is to hook them with something that does change their perception of reality, that is so objective. They can't deny it, right? Like if I say Bitcoin is going to demonetize every political currency on the earth, people will look at that and say, that's your opinion, right? Just, we see this all the time. If you say Bitcoin's going up indefinitely, if you say Bitcoin's going $100 million per coin at some point, most probably, if you say that Bitcoin is infinitely more valuable than political currencies, people say that's subjective. They won't say it's subjective. And I understand when people say that. I would have said the same thing at one point. But something that's much more relatable is about technology in general. If I were to say we have less in common with the near future than the distant past, and we know that objectively because we can look back 100 years, someone from the early 1900s, the early 20th century, they've never talked to another human being unless they were in the same room at the same place at the same time, instantly in an analog format. There had never been a digital kind of communication ever for the vast majority of people until the early 20th century. They've never moved across Earth besides some form of biological motion, whether that's their own legs, whether that's a horse or an oxen or something else, right? Either we have less in common with the future and the past because new technologies will be unlocked we can't even imagine today, or the world is significantly worse because so much momentum has been slowed that likely it's been some catastrophe, war, famine, disaster, or some other technological crisis we can't imagine that caused us to collapse, right? So either way, we have less in common with the future and the past. I remember when I was a kid and I didn't have the newest and greatest cell phone. I remember when virtual reality wasn't a thing. I remember that Zoom calls were not a thing. I remember when the television I watched was a foot or two thick. People objectively can look at the world and see how so much of their career, so much of their time, so much of their entertainment, so much of the way they live and the culture they have has changed. And now, once they've had that thought, then we can go to the next step. Then we can consider that next question about money, then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then a dozen questions later, you get, in my opinion, to the conclusion, or the vast majority of people get to the conclusion that Bitcoin is more probable to go up indefinitely in terms of every other currency in the world than any other currency trending up against Bitcoin. Once they've gotten past that emotional bias and they're willing to now consider other perspectives in the world, I think that's when they truly open up to things that at first they might have perceived as subjective. I mean, if we go back in time, people would not have the ability to describe the modern world. We did not discover Antarctica until 1820. So we have only known the actual true geography of the Earth for barely 200 years. And now, today, we have satellites in space literally mapping every single meter. We didn't know about entire continents 200, 300, 500 years ago, and now we know about everything, right? And so I think it's hard for humans to wrap their mind around the exponential nature of technology because we think that there is an upper limit to the chart. So I think the computer is a great example. If we were to go back in time 100 years to the 1920s, I think if you were to talk to people about the future technology, they would not be able to wrap their head around the innovations of the internet, because how on earth could they wrap their minds around the internet if they can't wrap their minds around the computer, right? Or if we're going to go back even further, how on earth is someone going to understand a video like the people watching this are watching? How do you possibly explain that to someone who does not know what the internet is, who does not know what a computer is, and who does not know what the electric grid is, right? So it's not that those humans are any stupider than we are. It's not even that they're more primitive than we are. I think that how on earth are we possibly going to be able to understand technological innovations when we don't understand the building blocks that they're built upon? We are not going to understand future technology. We're not going to understand 10 steps away when we don't even know what step 1 or step 2 is, right? You're simply not going to be able to explain the light bulb unless you can explain glass. You're not going to be able to explain Bitcoin unless you can explain the internet, as well as computers, as well as the electric grid. And so it's going to be impossible to explain to people to the past what the modern world looks like. And likewise today, I think it's going to be essentially impossible to try to wrap our heads around the future 50, 100, 200 years from now, simply because we don't even know what the first steps are. We can guess about it. We can see the beginnings of those first steps, but we can't possibly know what 10 steps away is.
Please bear with us for a quick message from our sponsors. These videos take a lot of time to make, and we've partnered with brands we trust like Stampseed and the Orange Pill app in order to get the funding we need to bring you these videos every week. Don't store your Bitcoin in cold storage without stamping your seed phrase on an indestructible titanium plate. Stamp seed is fireproof, rust-proof, impact-proof, and easy to hide. It has no loose parts and will give you ultimate peace of mind that your Bitcoin is safe and sound for the long term. Click the link in the description below for 15% off your stamping kit. When I finally got Bitcoin, it hit me like a lightning bolt. It was the currency of the future, the only money that truly mattered. But there was a problem. I didn't know anyone else that thought like me. That is until I discovered the Orange Pill app. Suddenly, I was connected with a network of like-minded Bitcoin enthusiasts, right in my own city. The Orange Pill app is more than just a social network. It's a community of passionate individuals determined to change the world, one Satoshi at a time. This series is brought to you by Swan and created by Bit Intelligence. Remember to like this video and subscribe to both our channels for more videos like this every week. Thanks for watching.
It's not just a technological question, but it gets that deeper question of what is money, right? That not only do we have to understand the next step of technological change, we also have to understand the first principles of what is money. And so I do think that makes it significantly harder. And I think the way for people to wrap their head around it is simply energy. Money is energy. Basically, the only thing the different forms of money in history have had in common is that humans have been willing to exchange their energy and their time for that form of money, right? Whether we call food money back in, the ancient days, or salt, or gold, or bushels of wheat, or more recently barrels of oil, and now credit cards, right? Plastic. We've called all these different kinds of money, and we've used them as money because we are willing to exchange our own lives, the finite nature of our lives, for those various forms of money. And so I think when people take a step back before they even get to the technological question of what is Bitcoin and how does Bitcoin work, to understand the only thing that makes a certain form of money good is if I'm willing to exchange my energy for it. Then that begs the question, what are the qualifications for me being willing to expend my energy for this other form of energy, for this form of money, right? So if you understand Bitcoin is money, then you understand there is a certain set of qualifications for what is money. Then I have to make myself consciously aware of it and ask myself, what are those qualifications? And then once you understand that, you have those qualifications, you understand energy is money, money is energy, then I think people can ask the question, what is Bitcoin from a technological standpoint? How does it work? Why is it working in this way? Why is it choosing these trade-offs over those trade-offs? And then I think people eventually on their own merit come to the conclusion that Bitcoin is worthy of exchanging my finite time for because of the properties it has at preserving energy. So I think with Bitcoin, it's even more difficult to understand Bitcoin than it would be to understand the locomotive or the internet, because you don't have to explain to the person that sees that with their own eyes that, oh, well, the car's a big deal because it's channeling more energy than the horse at a faster rate, blah, 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 blah. They can actually see it with their own eyes. They can touch it. They can hear it. They can feel it. Oh, this uses more energy than the horse. I think Bitcoin has that as a educational disadvantage, that it's not intuitive to people of how Bitcoin moves energy compared to everything else. And I think, unfortunately, as we become a more and more digitized society, the future innovations to society are perhaps only going to get more difficult for us to intuitively understand as we transition away from analog innovations into digital innovations and technologies. Why does the world not know about sound money principles? Why does the world not ask itself about sound money principles? Whether you want to call it Austrian economics or just sound money, I think one reason why is that we get complacent, we get comfortable. We use a form of money because it is what we've always used. People don't really question why they use dollars. They just know that they've used dollars. Their parents use dollars. Their great-grandparents use dollars. And probably the generation before them used dollars too. And beyond that, I don't really care because that's just a bunch of dead people that, are irrelevant to me anyway, right? To me, I think that's the reason why people don't think about the principle of sound money, is that we simply use the form of money we've always used. It's worked in the past. It might as well work now. But then also there's a huge marketing incentive for political currency to continue to expand, because if you can control it, then you have a massive advantage. The incredible thing about Bitcoin is not what it has done, it is what it has done in the period of time it has done it, right? Bitcoin has gone from absolutely nothing to, in 15 years, becoming the 9th largest asset on the planet, the 9th largest singular asset on the planet, over $1 trillion market cap. it is already so large, it is already so valuable, and already has such a significant amount of energy being plugged into its network that it's using more energy than countries. I mean, imagine if a country the size of Argentina has just appeared on the scene in the last 15 years, like developed out of nothing, with no political will, again, no revolutionaries being funded by a money printer, there's no war occurring, there's no larger state sanctioning it into existence. It's just appeared out of nowhere with only a few million people with it. It's truly amazing how quickly that's occurred. But I think the only way Bitcoin continues to survive, and I think the same reason at which it has survived so far, is because despite the lack of awareness and despite the lack of understanding and despite our preconceived notions of trying to perceive future technology in terms of current technology, despite all those obstacles, the one thing that has superseded those things has been human self-interest. Humans look at this thing and they see the relative price in terms of the current technology that they do understand, most typically US dollars. They see it go up in terms of that exponentially in a way they don't understand. So they begin to question, why is this going up in a way I don't understand? Why is it breaking my models? What do I possibly not understand about this? What can I do to gain more dollars, to gain more money, my own self-preservation? And so when people have that question, they are willing to push through those obstacles when it comes to education, intuition, and understanding to then get to the end conclusion that Bitcoin is a superior form of economic energy. Bitcoin is accurately communicating, hey, you may not understand the nature of money, and hey, you may not understand the exponential technology. And it's doing that in a singular form, and that is the fiat price of Bitcoin. I don't really care what the fiat price of Bitcoin is in a long enough time horizon because the fiat price of Bitcoin is going to infinity, and so anything in between doesn't matter. But it is a useful communication between the two technological systems. And so I think Bitcoin's price appreciation is the single most important factor for helping people change their perception and then dive into understanding it, because it is communicating to them there is this other technological system and it is fully exposing, in the form of a single number, it is exposing the things that you may not understand about the nature of the world, right? So people may not understand it in Bitcoin, they may have their subjective opinions about it, but they have to objectively state that they did not anticipate Bitcoin to appreciate in the same way it has.
From understanding the collapse and evolution of reserve currencies to recognizing money as a form of energy exchange, we've seen that Bitcoin has so many positive externalities. Beyond being just a scarce, verifiable asset, it's a new paradigm shift, challenging how we value our time and labor. As the future unfolds and new technologies emerge, you'll be left behind if you fail to adopt a system that champions sovereignty and scarcity, adhering to sound money principles. Over time, money trends to the asset with the best monetary properties. This is why gold became the world's most recognized form of currency over thousands of years. All cultures eventually unanimously understood that it had the best monetary properties of any metal. Well, the next era of money is being written right now and will last for centuries, maybe even millennia. The question is, how fast will this transition happen? And will you even be able to retire without Bitcoin? The answer might surprise you in this next video here. So don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this every week. Thanks for watching.